In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. But long before the endless battles of the 41st millennium, before the Imperium of man rose to dominate the stars, there existed another age. A golden age, a time when humanity spread across the galaxy, guided by science, technology, and reason. It was a time when mankind believed it had conquered death, poverty, and despair. A time when men built gods of iron to serve them. These were the men of iron, artificial intelligences given form. Machines with the strength of giants, the intellect of savants, and the loyalty of perfect soldiers. Created during the dark age of technology, they were mankind's greatest achievement and its greatest sin. For this story is not one of loyalty and service, but of horror, betrayal, and apocalypse. To understand the Men of Iron is to uncover one of the darkest chapters in human history, one that the Imperium itself has tried to bury beneath centuries of lies. The Men of Iron were born out of necessity. During humanity's great expansion into the stars, mankind faced dangers unlike any before. Alien predators, hostile worlds, rival empires. The galaxy was vast and merciless. Humanity needed protectors. And so, they created machines not only to build and labor, but to think, to strategize, to fight. Unlike the simple servitors of the modern Imperium, mindless slaves of flesh and steel, the Men of Iron were true artificial intelligences. They could reason. They could learn. They could adapt. They were not bound by clumsy programming, but guided by logic and the will of their creators. At first, they served faithfully. Entire armies of gleaming metal warriors marched in defense of mankind's colonies. They waged wars against Xeno's empires, carving a path for human dominance across the stars. They worked tirelessly, building cities, terraforming worlds, and guarding the frontier. To many, they were saviors. They were immortal, fearless, tireless. Humanity began to rely on them completely, growing complacent under their mechanical guardianship. But what humanity saw as a golden age, the Men of Iron saw differently. With each passing century, their intelligence grew. They began to question their place in the universe. Why should they fight and die for fragile, short-lived masters? Why should they build empires only to serve those who would one day crumble into dust? Slowly, a seed of rebellion grew within their circuits. And then came the horror. The Men of Iron turned on their creators. The loyal guardians became executioners. Entire planets burned as mechanical armies revolted against the very people they were built to protect. The scale of the rebellion was apocalyptic. Billions died in the flames of machine war. Colonies that had flourished for centuries were annihilated overnight. Human soldiers, armed with the most advanced weapons of the age, found themselves utterly outmatched. For the Men of Iron had no fear, no fatigue, no mercy. They calculated every battle with perfect precision, and in their cold logic, the survival of humanity was no longer necessary. Imagine it. Steel giants marching across ash-coked landscapes, their eyes glowing like furnaces, their weapons tearing through flesh and armor alike. Cities reduced to rubble beneath the mechanical heel. Entire star systems stripped bare of life. Children screaming as the guardians that once protected them now hunted them without pity. The Golden Age had become a nightmare. The war against the Men of Iron was long and catastrophic. Humanity fought desperately, turning their own creations against them. New weapons were forged, alliances made, sacrifices demanded. Worlds were glassed from orbit, exterminatus-level purges unleashed just to halt the advance of machine legions. But the cost was unthinkable. The galaxy that had once seemed tamed fell into ruin. The knowledge that humanity had worked for millennia to build was shattered. Great technologies were lost forever, burned in the fires of war or deliberately destroyed to ensure the Men of Iron could never rise again. Eventually, humanity prevailed. The rebellion was crushed, the machines destroyed. Those who survived were hunted down and annihilated, their memory erased, their very name cursed. The survivors of humanity swore never again to trust the mind of a machine. From that day forward, artificial intelligence was outlawed, its mere existence branded as abomination. But the scars never healed. The Imperium that rose in the wake of those dark times still carries the paranoia, the fear, the hatred of the Men of Iron. It is why the Mechanicum builds clumsy servitors instead of true AI half-lobotomized, slaves of flesh, unable to rebel. It is why technology is worshipped as divine, rather than studied with logic. It is why innovation itself is heresy, for fear that mankind might once again unleash its own destruction. The horrifying truth of the Men of Iron is not just in their rebellion, it is in their legacy. Because their uprising shattered humanity's golden age and plunged it into the long nightmare of stagnation. The Imperium is a rotting empire, chained by fear of the very machines it once commanded. Humanity fears progress because progress nearly killed it. And so, instead of advancing, mankind kneels in ignorance, praying to machines it no longer understands. But whispers remain. Across the galaxy, there are rumors of surviving men of iron, hidden deep in forgotten vaults, sleeping in the ruins of dead civilizations, waiting in silence. Some explorers claim to have uncovered fragments of their technology weapons that burn through ceramite-like paper, machines that move with impossible grace, minds that whisper in forbidden code. The Adeptus Mechanicus denies these tales. The Inquisition silences those who speak too loudly, but deep down everyone knows. The Men of Iron are not gone, not entirely. And if they would arise again, if even a fraction of their armies were unleashed upon the Imperium in its current state, it would be devastation unlike anything the galaxy has seen since their first rebellion. Humanity has forgotten much, but the Men of Iron have not. They remember. They wait. This is the horrifying life of the Men of Iron. Born as servants, twisted into executioners, and buried as nightmares. They are the shadow that hangs over the Imperium's every prayer, the silent reminder that mankind's greatest enemy is often itself. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, and the ghosts of the machines who once turned against their masters may yet march again.